About 12 days after the start of the Tufan al-Aqsa storm operation carried out by the al-Qassam brigades against the occupying entity, precisely on October 19, the Ansar Allah group, or the Houthi movement in Yemen, decided to engage in the battle against Israel in response to the brutal war imposed by the occupying entity on our people in the Gaza Strip. Let's head south of the Red Sea. Specifically here, in front of us, is Yemen. The Houthi group has control over the entire northwest of Yemen. The distance from the region controlled by the Houthis to the heart of the occupied territories is about 2,200 kilometers. On October 19, the Houthis launched 3 cruise missiles and 8 drones northwards along the Red Sea towards Israeli targets in the occupied territories. At that time, the American destroyer USS Carney had arrived from the Mediterranean to the northern Red Sea 2 days before. It managed to intercept the missiles and drones before they reached their targets. After that, and until late October, the Houthi attacks continued, with a large number of medium-range ballistic missiles called Volcano 3 and drones. This prompted the Israeli occupation army to operate, for the first time, the long-range missile defense system called Arrow 3 to intercept these missiles, with the interception also carried out by the American naval forces in the Red Sea, for a part of them. Let's return to the map and look at the region controlled by the Houthis in northwest Yemen. We would find that they possess a dangerous strategic advantage due to their proximity to the Bab el-Mandab Strait, which connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, as we have seen. The width of the strait is only 30 kilometers. Weeks after the launch of their first attacks against the Israeli occupation, the Houthis decided to change their attack strategy. They began in mid-November to target commercial ships crossing the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and with their proximity to this gateway to the Red Sea, and their possession of a vast arsenal of anti-ship ballistic missiles and they have a large number of drones. They can easily reach any ship that crosses the strait, whether hitting it with rockets, boarding it with small boats, or landing on it with helicopters. That is why they announced the targeting of commercial ships linked to Israel in an attempt to influence the Israeli economy. This is what happened. The occupation's economy, which relies overwhelmingly on maritime trade, has become almost besieged after its main ports became within the range of fire from the Houthis, on the one hand, and the Palestinian resistance on the other. This has made large shipping companies afraid. They are approaching most Israeli ports. In particular, the port of Eilat, located on the Red Sea, and the port of Ashkelon, located on the Mediterranean Sea, very close to the borders of the Gaza Strip. But the Houthi attacks on ships linked to the Israeli occupation or heading towards it, which, according to the US Central Command, which oversees military operations in the Middle East, amounted to 24 attacks in the period between November 19 and January 3, did not only affect the Israeli occupation, but also had effects on the entire global economy. What is happening in the Red Sea has caused fear that affected global supply chains. It has created the most significant disruption to international trade and maritime shipping since the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, you know that the primary transportation mode for global trade is shipping across oceans, and about 90% of international trade moves by sea. That's why, in today's crucial episode, we will find out precisely what is happening in the Red Sea. We will explain the repercussions of the Houthi attacks on all parties, how they have impacted, for example, the Suez Canal, and the significance of the strategic canal in global supply chains. We will also learn about the impact of the Houthi attack on shipping giants worldwide, and the cost of redirecting maritime routes from the Red Sea to the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa. It is a significant episode to watch until the end. I am Ashraf Ibrahim, and this is the economic informant Saris Markets. A licensed financial brokerage company by Labuan Fa is sponsoring this episode. The company is based in Malaysia and operates in the Arabian Gulf markets. It is the only global broker that allows cryptocurrency trading against various asset classes such as stocks, commodities, and indices. Ceres Markets offers a leverage of up to 1 to 400 and holds separate accounts in top-tier banks. If you are interested in trading with them, carefully assess the investment risks and learn more about the company. You will find a link below the video that will give you a 100% deposit bonus if you register through it. Before we delve into the disturbances in the Red Sea and analyze the actions of the Houthi rebels, let's take a quick look at the Panama Canal in Central America. This navigational passage competes with the Suez Canal. The Panama Canal is an artificial waterway, approximately 82 kilometers long, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It serves as a shortcut for ships traveling between East Asia and the eastern coast of the United States. Compared to, for example, the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal shortens the travel time between New York and Shanghai by 5 days for ships traveling at an average speed. It handles about 5% of global maritime trade, making it crucial for international commerce, especially in facilitating the transportation of American fuel and grains heading to Asia. Incidentally, it is the largest source of income for Panamanians. In 2022, for instance, it generated $4.3 billion for the country. Why is all of this becoming threatened? What's the issue with the Panama Canal? That has been going on for a few months, and it's continuing with some difficulty. Last October was the driest in the Panama Canal region since at least 1950, due to the climatic phenomenon, El Niño, which affected rainfall and temperatures worldwide. For those who may not know, the difference between the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal is that the Suez Canal is at sea level. At the same time, the Panama Canal is a freshwater canal relying on artificial lakes. This makes it susceptible to drought. Therefore, rainwater is essential for operating the canal, as it is located 26 meters above sea level, and works with a system of locks that raise ships for entry and exits. The important thing is that when the Panama Canal operates at its maximum capacity, between 38 and 40 ships can pass through the canal daily. However, during the past months, due to the decrease in water levels, the number of ships has decreased significantly and reached 22 ships when filming the episode. It will decrease to only 18 ships as of next February. The decrease in the number of ships allowed to pass through the Panama Canal, the reduction in their cargo, and the increase in traffic fees due to bidding on reservations caused international shipping companies to begin changing the route of their sales to the Suez Canal. For example, the German Hapag-Lloyd Group, the fifth largest owner of container ships in the world, announced the transfer of no less than 42 of its ships from the Panama Canal to the Suez Canal. The problem of drought in the Panama Canal would continue for some time, and it would have been a valuable gift for the Suez Canal and would have created a strong recovery in its revenues. But at the same time, the Houthi attacks on commercial ships that pass through the Bab al-Mandab Strait began. As soon as the Houthi attacks ended, the Suez Canal would benefit significantly from the Panama Canal crisis. We can make an exclusive episode, upon your request, to show up the dilemma facing the Panama Canal, and how the solution is being considered, as well as the impact of this whole story on the Suez Canal and international navigation routes. Please let us know in the comments below. So let's move on from the Panama Canal to our main topic, the Red Sea region and the impact of the Houthi attacks there, which can be divided into intentional and unintentional effects. As for the intentional effects, as we mentioned earlier, the Houthis have made it clear that they are targeting ships, whether they are of Israeli ownership or heading to any port in Israel, with the aim of besieging the occupation's economy and thus forcing it to stop its brutal aggression on the Gaza Strip. Of course, when we know that 99% of the goods imported by the occupying entity come by sea, and that 30% of Israeli imports pass through the Red Sea on container ships, We can be sure that Houthi strikes on ships linked to Israel are impactful and painful to the occupation's economy. According to the data from the Central Bureau of Statistics in Israel in the past October, the total Israeli imports of goods, excluding diamonds, reached 17.5 billion shekels. 25% of these imports came from Asian countries, which included machinery necessary for infrastructure and construction projects. Consumer products, electronic products, and goods ordered through Chinese online shopping websites like AliExpress. As a result, maritime shipping is considered a lifeline for the economy of the occupying entity, not only for imports, but also for its exports, because Asia is the second largest trading partner for Israelis after Europe. This is why Ron Malcha, the CEO of the Port of Haifa, told Reuters that the ports are the lifeline of the Israeli economy. However, as an unintended or secondary impact, the Houthi attacks did not only affect the Israeli economy, but also the flow of goods and global trade everywhere that uses this main maritime passageway. And to help you understand the importance and danger of this region, you need to know the volume of global trade that passes through it, where it comes from, and where it goes. Exactly. The Bab el-Mandab Strait is the only route leading to the Suez Canal, thus connecting the largest consumers of tradable goods in the Middle East, Europe, and the United States with major suppliers in Asia. Its importance increased further after the issue with the Panama Canal, as we explained, making it the direct alternative for the passage of goods from East Asia to the eastern United States. The British maritime security and risk consultancy company, Dryad Global, states that approximately 35,000 ships sail through the Red Sea region annually, transporting goods between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, representing around 10% of the global gross domestic product. The Suez Canal, with a length of 192 kilometers, is considered the fastest maritime route between Asia and Europe and one of the most congested trade routes in the world. It handles 12% of global trade, including 30% of container traffic, representing over $1 trillion of goods annually. For example, the Russian war in Ukraine and European sanctions on Russia have made the Suez Canal and the Red Sea vital global trade routes for oil. For instance, Europe, after stopping buying oil from Russia, commenced to rely heavily on shipments from the Middle East, with most passing north through the Suez Canal. On the other hand, Russia started selling its oil to India and China, with a significant portion being shipped from ports in the North Sea and the Black Sea, and passing south through the Suez Canal. This development has led to a 140% increase in oil traffic through the Red Sea, north and south, reaching approximately 3.8 million barrels per day. As for natural gas, 8% of the world's liquefied natural gas trade passes through the Red Sea. Additionally, 8% of global grain trade also passes through the same route, meaning roughly 10 million tons of grain pass through the Suez Canal each year, with a significant portion heading to China. Due to its pivotal role in the flow of global trade, the Suez Canal is considered an important and vital source for the Egyptian economy, and canal fees are one of the main sources of hard currency. In the fiscal year 22-23, the Suez Canal achieved record revenues reaching $9.4 billion, with over 25,000 ships passing through it annually. However, after a series of attacks by the Houthis targeting commercial ships, global shipping companies announced the suspension of their voyages through the Red Sea and diverted ships to the route around the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa to avoid the danger. For example, the 8 largest container shipping companies in the world, which are displayed on your screen and are distributed between the continents of Europe and Asia, announced the diversion of their ships' routes from the Red Sea to the Cape of Good Hope route. It's not just them, but also other container shipping companies and global commodity trading companies. If we were to visit the website of a company like Maersk, for example, to see the routes of the ships that will sail in the coming weeks, we will find that the company has diverted the routes of all ships that were scheduled to cross the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden to the Cape of Good Hope route. The British oil and gas giant BP and the Norwegian Equinor have also announced the suspension of all their shipments from the region. Therefore, if we were to track ship movements, we would easily notice the ships that have begun to change their routes. Instead of entering through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, they are opting for the longer and more costly Cape of Good Hope route to avoid the risk of Houthi attacks, as we observe the movement of ships directly at the time of filming the episode on Saturday, January 7th. So, how many ships have changed their destination from the Red Sea to the Cape of Good Hope? According to the latest data we were able to obtain from the Swiss logistics giant Kuhn plus Nagel International AG, just before the filming of the episode directly, the number of ships affected by the situation that decided to change their route until January 5th was 420 ships. Those on the map in front of us, as we can see, the congestion around the route of Cape of Good Hope is clear. Of course, we can identify the details and the size of each ship from the countries, where it is coming from and where it is going, and what it is carrying. As a result, the Houthi attacks have caused a disruption in the flow of goods in one of the most important maritime passages in the world, the Red Sea. This disrupts global supply chains and poses a sudden blow to the global economy in the new year of 2024. And here comes an important and fundamental question: how can Houthi attacks affect the global economy? To answer this question, we need to look at this map. If we have a ship departing from the port of Singapore in Southeast Asia and heading to a major maritime port in Europe, for example, the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, the natural route for this ship would be to navigate through the Red Sea and pass through the Suez Canal, taking about 26 days for the journey. However, if this same ship were forced to travel south from the route of Cape of Good Hope, it would take at best 36 days for the journey. Therefore, the route of Cape of Good Hope adds an additional 10 to 14 days to the journey compared to the Suez Canal route. What is the problem with that? The problem is that sailing ships in the open sea for extra days costs millions of dollars. Do you know, guys, that redirecting a ship to the route of Cape of Good Hope instead of the Suez Canal costs the ship an additional fuel cost for each round trip between Asia and Europe? It's $1 million. Yes, just as you heard, in addition to the cost of disrupting supply chains. Because the ships will arrive at their destinations later than expected, and it will take longer for them to return to carry subsequent shipments. This long distance is definitely one of the reasons for the current significant increase in spot container shipping rates between Asia and Europe and the United States. The second reason for the increase in container rates is the increased capacity of shipping companies. When the journey takes longer, this has led to a reduction in ship availability, and shipping lines are raising their prices. According to the company Freightus, which is a platform for booking and paying for international shipping, the spot price for shipping goods in a 40-foot container from Asia to Northern Europe exceeded $4,000 on January 3rd. This means that prices jumped by 173% from mid-December after the ships changed course. These prices are expected to increase further. For example, the French shipping group CMA announced on January 2nd in a statement on its website that it will increase its container shipping prices from Asia to the Mediterranean by 100%, from $3,000 to $6,000 per 40-foot container, and this increase will take effect from January 15th. Shipping rates were not the only thing that increased, but the costs of insuring the ships that will cross the Red Sea for a second time have also increased sharply due to the high risks in the region. On December 18th, marine insurance companies in London expanded the high-risk areas within the Red Sea. The cost of insuring a single ship increased tenfold compared to the beginning of the same month. To give you an idea, war risk insurance is generally determined as a percentage of the ship's value. During the period, the ship will sail in the hazardous areas, and this additional insurance coverage is usually for a period of 7 days. This means that if a ship is worth, for example, $100 million, its insurance will be $700,000 for each trip. The high fuel consumption due to the long distance, the increased container prices, and rising insurance costs will simply lead to an increase in the prices of goods transported by sea. As a result, retailers and manufacturers will pass on these higher costs to consumers, affecting all goods, from sports shoes and food to cars, and even oil. This will lead to an increase in the global inflation rate, impacting the cost of living, posing significant risks to the global economy, at a time when inflation had just begun to decrease worldwide. If we take a look at Europe, for instance, there are significant concerns about disruptions in energy flows at a time when it increasingly relies on gas transported by sea, which would replace the gas from Russian pipelines. As a result, it is expected that fuel and commodity prices heading to Europe will experience a significant increase as well. For example, the Swedish furniture giant IKEA has said that it is looking for alternative options to be able to provide its products, after shipping companies carrying its products decided to reroute ships away from the Red Sea. By the way, a large part of IKEA's products pass through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, coming from its factories in Asia and going to its markets in the Middle East, Europe, and the United States. Retail giants in the United States, such as Walmart, Target, Macy's, and Nike, rely on the Red Sea and the Suez Canal to receive their goods from India, China, and Sri Lanka. For instance, the American retail clothing company Abercrombie & Fitch has started to switch from sea freight to air freight to avoid disruptions and delays in product availability. This is a very costly option, particularly for companies dealing with critical or high-value goods, such as designer clothing, electronics, and medical supplies, which are forced to resort to air freight, incurring significantly higher costs compared to sea freight. Air freight costs approximately 5 to 15 times more than sea freight. The Israeli occupation may be the main stricken entity of the current situation in the Red Sea, but it is certainly not the only one affected. Despite the fact that the declared target of the Houthi attacks is Israeli-affiliated ships, this posed a state of fear and concern among all shipping companies passing through the Red Sea. In this context, the Israeli occupation, as usual, sought help from USA and a number of its allies in Europe, led by Germany, to put an end to the Houthi attacks. This is based on the pretext that these attacks do not only harm the Israelis, but also global trade in general. Based on this, the United States and its allies decided on December 18 to form an international military task force to protect this vital shipping lane from Houthi attacks. Despite the formation of this massive military force, it has not succeeded in stopping the Houthi attacks on commercial ships, which have continued up to the filming of this episode, and therefore, it has not been able to persuade global shipping companies to resume transit through the Red Sea. That's why on January 3, the United States, Britain, and other allies issued a final warning to the Houthi group to stop their attacks, or they would face a military strike. On the other hand, the Houthis had previously threatened that they would not stop their attacks on Israeli commercial ships until the aggression on the Gaza Strip is stopped. Of course, the situation is rapidly evolving. It's very possible that by the time you are watching me, a military strike has been carried out against the Houthis, or the occupying entity has decided to cease its savage aggression on the Gaza Strip. It's also possible that the conflict has expanded, drawing in other groups and countries. Only God knows what will happen. But aside from that, one really wonders,